Hey everyone, good morning and welcome to Morning Tea, the show that is here to motivate you, inspire you, and educate you so that you can level up your life, your business, or your career. So we hope that you can get some tidbits from today's show that you can take with you along your journey today and forever so that you can take yourself to the next level. So today I have a special guest with me. Her name is Talaya Dendy. And I was able to find her on LinkedIn, right? She liked one of my posts. And when I looked at who she was and I saw her title, it intrigued me. Having a mom who passed away from cancer, knowing that whole process, not just my mom, a lot of people in my family who have passed away from cancer, her being a cancer doula was very intriguing to me. And I was like, I just must have you on this show to talk about it, how she, became a cancer doula. Because I know we've all heard of doulas and we equate doulas to people who are pregnant. So I can't wait to hear this story. And so go ahead, Talaya. And I hope I'm saying your name correctly. I have a way of butchering people's names.
That's okay. Good morning, Tracy. Thank you for having me.
You're welcome.
And I am Talaya Dendy, the Cancer Doula, with On the Other Side. I am a 9-year cancer thriver. And so, as a cancer doula, what I do is provide emotional and navigational support to cancer patients and even some survivors. So, I help walk them through the whole process of their cancer journey. And as you know, a lot of you may know, there is so much that comes with that journey that a lot of people are just not prepared for because it's not something that they teach you. You know, a lot of people don't even want to talk about cancer. So I decided, I wanted to do something to bridge the medical and emotional sides of cancer. So that's how I ended up being a cancer doula.
Okay, great. So you said you're a survivor. What type of cancer did you survive?
Yes, I'm a 9-year survivor and I had Hodgkin's lymphoma.
Really? Wow.
Mhm.
That is impressive.
Yes,
The survival
yes,
rate on that is very low. So
yes.
congratulations.
Thank
Yeah,
you, thank
you're
you.
welcome. You're welcome. I know that it is extremely difficult to have a loved one go through cancer and see them usually deteriorate over time, either from the chemo or the radiation, and then into passing. So I know that what you do has to be an extremely emotional journey. So the first thing I want to ask you, because you're in this type of job, and I know a lot of people that are in jobs that are very taxing, because I've had all my kids have been preemies, and I know that when I had my daughter, my last baby, and she spent like 3 months in Miami Children's Hospital. And one of the things I asked the nurses was like, are you afraid of being pregnant? Seeing all of these small babies in here. And most of them echoed yes. Some of them even said that they've had to have therapy. Is that something that you have to go through on a regular basis to keep your mind sound and ready to deal with your patients?
Yes, as a cancer doula, you definitely have to have a strong support system, whether that's your family, whether it's faith. And yes, it's even good to, have your own personal therapist that you can talk to because you are supporting people who, could possibly die. And sometimes they are very close to death. And you're forming relationships and with these people, and then to lose them is like losing a loved one, because they're allowing you into their life. They're opening up to you and being very vulnerable, and that's a gift in itself. So to, witness someone go through that is very difficult. So definitely, you have to have a strong support system.
Okay. So being a cancer doula, is that a certification program? Is there some type of schooling, education that you have to go through to become a cancer doula?
Well, Tracy, for me, when I initially decided to do this, I didn't know much about it. I had seen a couple people listed as cancer coaches,
Mhm.
and there was no particular certification that I was able to find.
Okay.
So, what I had done was I married together my own personal experience and I went and got a coaching certification. So, I married the two together, and
Mhm.
that is basically my training.
Oh,
Now, I'm glad you asked that question because several people have asked me that, and I'm actually in the process of creating a training program for people that are interested in becoming cancer doulas.
I love it. I love it. I love when entrepreneurs get asked the question over and over and the light bulb goes off in their head like, hey, okay, maybe this is something I need to do because people keep asking me. Because I was asked that question when I said I had met you. So I had to ask the question. You're like, oh, what does she do? How
Mhm.
does she become a cancer doula? So I said, I'll ask her when I speak to her. Right. So that's great to know that
Yeah.
you're creating a certification program. Um, I'm just interested in knowing when you first started as a cancer coach and then you decided to call yourself a cancer doula, how were you received in the community, the cancer community, or the the people who have cancer and their caretakers? Is it something that they gravitated to naturally, or were they a little apprehensive about what is it and why would I need someone? What were the kind of questions and what were the kind of apprehensions that you got towards being a cancer doula?
Yeah, so Tracy, basically, I intentionally switched my title from a cancer coach to a doula because I found myself getting lost in the coaching world, and people just were kind of expecting me to do more of coaching techniques.
Mhm.
Well, when I started really digging into doulas and what they do, that really triggered me to say, you know what? I think what I do is more fitting for the title of a doula because doulas provide, emotional support. They help people through major life changes and people who are experiencing significant health changes. So I said, that's exactly what it is that I do. Those are the kinds of people that I support.
Mhm.
So that's how I transitioned my name. Back to what people, cancer patients and their caregivers, some of their apprehensions were, well, how can you help me? I'm very frustrated with my patient navigator or my social worker. What is it that you do that's different? And to answer that question, what I do that's different is I'm not handing someone a sheet of paper saying, here's a list of resources. No, I'm finding things that apply specifically to that person and what matters to them. I'm
Mhm.
helping them through their individualized, barriers and challenges and concerns and things like that. It's more of a um, more
Consultation.
personalized, more like hand-holding and navigating the person through this. Because one thing that I can say is that when I had cancer, I wish I would have had someone that I could have talked to that could have said, "Talaya, this is what you can expect when you start your chemotherapy. These are some of the things that I did that helped to offset some of the side effects." Just having someone to kind of prep you in a sense. I found that working with my clients, that really helps them with their level of anxiety. So, yes, and then the other apprehension that people have is, well, what happens when this is all over? And
Mhm.
a lot of times, and I can even speak to this myself, it's like when the treatment's over, your doctor appointments are right away reduced from, once every other week to once every 3 months. So you're just sitting there like, oh my God, I don't know what to do now. What I do when I work with my clients is I empower them, first of
Mhm.
all, to be able to take care of a lot of the things that we're taking care of together. I give
Mhm.
them the tools to be able to continue to do that, but then I also transition so that at the end of our time together, there's a 30-day period
Mhm.
where we stay in touch, but it's not as frequent and they can contact me if they have questions and things like that, but it's not as close and not as often, but it's not just abruptly either. So
So, What you said there, that was interesting to me, because I remember in 2017 when I had, that was not my first rodeo, but I just want to reference 2017. I had a goiter that was out to here that was precancerous. And
Oh,
so I had to have both of my thyroids removed because there was crystallization and all of that stuff going on. And you're right. I went from going to the doctor every single week, right? Over
mhm,
like a 3 4 month period, and even before that. So maybe over a good maybe 5 month, 5 to 6 month period, going to the doctor consistently. Longer than that. Oh my gosh. About 8 months, because I couldn't speak after. So I had to
oh,
go to speech
wow.
therapy for like 6 months. So yeah. So I found out in June. It could have been a year. Listen, they're so blurry now. So I found out in June, had the surgery in October, and then speech therapy, and just constantly going to the doctor, making sure things were healing, that type of stuff. And then when the appointment stopped, I was like, because my whole life now revolved around going to the
Mhm,
doctor, right? And then when it was
yes,
done, I was like, it was a relief, but it was like, okay, so now I got a lot of free time on my hands. What am I going to do with all of this time? And like you said, it's always good if you have somebody to tell you, well, okay, how about let's do XYZ, or throw yourself into this, or that type of stuff. But it you're right, it does become, okay, now I don't have these appointments, now I don't have that support system of going, someone talking me through certain things. What do you do with the rest of your time? So yeah, I do
mhm,
completely understand that. I do.
absolutely. It's
Yeah.
it's pretty scary.
Mhm. It is. It is. So tell me, what else? How does this process work? So do you just help them with just things that are associated with their medical um, treatment, or are you helping them to deal with things in their family? Like, are you involved in the family dynamic, the dynamics with their kids? Do you help them to reacclimate back into the workforce if they had to leave work? Tell me about how all of that works.
So basically, it's all encompassing. So, as I mentioned earlier, I kind of close the gap between the medical and the emotional side of cancer. My area of specialty is really the emotional side. And I basically help them, learn how to self advocate for themselves. A lot of people are not very comfortable doing that because they don't feel like they're the expert. Well,
Mhm.
in reality, you are the expert of your body, and you have an idea of how you'd like to be treated. There's certain things that you are willing to deal with, and there's certain things you're not. So just being comfortable self advocating, helping people with their relationships. A lot of times I find that people struggle with communicating with their loved ones and their family about their needs, wants, and desires, because a lot of times people are the person that everyone comes to. So it's hard for them to ask for help. So we kind of work through those kinds of things.
Mhm.
I help them to understand their treatment plan and their diagnosis. So I
Okay.
provide education on the type of cancer that they have, because a lot of times, as you know, I'm sure, um, the doctors kind of throw these big words at you, and a lot of people are not well versed in dissecting those words and having a clear understanding. They'll say that they understand because they don't want to, feel like they're stupid or anything like that. Or
Mhm.
or they may not feel comfortable, talking to their doctor. So I help people form positive relationships and partnerships with their oncologist and their healthcare team, because that's really what it should be. It should be a partnership.
Mhm.
And that's what I learned from my own experience. Thankfully, I was blessed with a really great oncologist, and right away, we had formed a partnership in a level of mutual respect for each other. Had that not
Yes.
been there, it wouldn't have went as smoothly, I can tell you that. So, there's just so many different things that are involved. I've helped people work through their self-esteem issues, that
Okay.
actually played a
So you act
part.
like a life coach as well.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's just so many different things. And
Mhm.
Tracy, that's the other thing. When people think about cancer, typically, they think about people losing their hair, chemotherapy, that kind of thing. But boy, I can tell you, it goes so much deeper than that. And it's usually a time when a lot of different other challenges and concerns and other needs that people have come to the surface. So
Right.
it's a lot of different things. And one thing that I always say to my clients is we're focusing on what matters to you. That could be anything. If it's
Mhm.
something that I can help them with, I will refer them to someone else who can help them. Like if they need like a therapist, a
Mhm.
licensed therapist, I have someone that I can refer them to.
Okay, because I was just about to ask you about that. Like, are you
Mhm.
collaborating with other para professionals in the industry, whether it be psychologists? Well, they're not paraprofessionals, but you know what I'm talking about. I'm not
Mhm.
to mean their credentials, but other professionals within the industry that are can help them in a holistic way.
Yes, absolutely. Because I'm not a licensed therapist.
Right.
I can speak from my experience. I can speak from the knowledge that I've gained, about cancer. But, there's certain things that I don't touch. I'm not a medical doctor. I don't say, you know what, you shouldn't do your chemotherapy. I don't say those kinds of things.
Okay.
I help them manage their side effects,
Hmm.
and share different techniques with them. But I'm not a medical physician or doctor, anything like that.
Okay. One of the things that you said was when you went through your own cancer journey, it was pretty not easy, but I want to say it didn't have a lot of humps along the way because you had professionals that you trusted and who were there to really support you. Now, I know of
Mhm.
situations where people are going through cancer and their whoever their oncologist is less than professional or they just don't jive. Right, maybe the
Yeah.
person is a little curt and you need somebody who's a little bit more nurturing. A curt person can work for certain people. Some people just want it cut and dry, just give me the information and let me get on. Right, and then
Mhm.
other people want you to take the time to nurture them, to really talk to them and like you said, hold their hand, almost like a doula, but you're still their oncologist and they want that nurturing. So when you meet clients who are less than satisfied with the care that they're getting either at the cancer center or with their oncologist or even like the nurse practitioner, whoever it is, how do you deal with that situation? Because I know one of the things that you said is getting them to advocate for themselves, but how would you deal with that situation?
Okay, so great question. Just recently, I was talking with one of my clients, and
Mhm.
she was telling me that she told her nurse that, I'm feeling really sick. The anti-nausea medication you're giving me is not working because instead of giving it to my client intravenously, she was given a pill, which takes longer to get through your
Oh,
system. And so immediately after giving her the pill, they started
mhm.
chemotherapy. So of course she started to feel sick.
Of
And
course.
she called the nurse over and she said, the anti-nausea medication that you've given me is not working. I'm feeling really sick,
Mhm.
and the nurse was really rude to her. So I
Oh,
said to my client, I said, hopefully this won't happen again. But if it happens again, politely, say to the nurse, I understand that you're probably stressed out and overworked due to COVID, whatever. You probably may have a lot on your plate. However, I am a customer of yours and I
yeah.
expect to have my needs met. And my need is this,
Mhm.
so be very direct, be to the point, and don't be afraid of
Mhm.
saying what you need. What I also did was I advised my client to speak with her doctor.
Mhm.
If she could speak with her doctor prior to her next appointment, that would be great. And just list out what it is that she needs, what's working, what isn't working, so that they
Right.
can come up with a plan to make sure that her next chemotherapy session is not that horrible. and she's getting the care that she needs.
Mhm.
Um, Another instance was ABVD is a typical type of chemotherapy for people who have Hodgkin's lymphoma.
Mhm.
And I even experienced this myself. The bleomycin,
Mhm.
typically for a lot of people, it affects their lungs, their breathing, and things like that. I had noticed that right away. And I spoke up to my oncologist and I said, this isn't working. Something's changing. I'm not sure what's causing it. So we did the research together. He did a pulmonary test and he said, yes, we have to take the bleomycin out. So you
Mhm.
have to speak up for yourself. You have to document the changes that you're experiencing so that you can take it back to your physician and say, hey, here's what's happening. What can we do about it? What's the issue? And that's another way to advocate for yourself. The other thing is, if you feel like you and your oncologist or other people on your healthcare team are simply not connecting, you have the right to seek other medical professionals. You have that right. If you feel like this person doesn't have your best interest in mind, you have the right to find someone else. And I know that in itself can be scary.
It can
And
be.
when I have clients that have those situations where they say, Talaya, I just want to find someone else, then we work through that together. What are your concerns? What type of person would you like supporting you as far as your oncologist? And I try to help them find that person. You know,
Mhm.
um, the other thing is I do appointment companions for my VIP Empowered Patient program. What
I was
that
going to
means,
ask you about that. If you go to the doctor with them, so I'm glad you touched on it. Go ahead.
yeah. And so, if they have that particular package, if they live in the Twin Cities area, I actually meet them at the hospital or clinic, and I'll sit
Okay.
in the room with them and I'll kind of help them through that process.
Mhm.
I'll write down notes. I'll even ask if it's okay for me to record it so that we can go back and play it. Because after the appointment, I sit down with them and have a 30-minute debrief. During
Uh-huh.
that debrief, we go over what was discussed in the appointment. And then we also talk about, what questions do you have? What concerns do you have? And what are your next steps? And make sure they understand all of that. If they're not locally, I do it virtually.
Mhm.
So basically, if they're allowed to have me like on Zoom while they're in the doctor's office, then we'll do it that way. If
Mhm.
not, we'll do a debrief after their appointment and they'll share with me what was discussed and we'll take it from there.
Okay.
So there's a lot of different ways to handle those kinds of situations.
Nice. I like that. Um, so I know I definitely have two more questions for you. So the next question is, how do you suggest that someone who has cancer and has young children approach telling their children about the discovery that they have cancer?
Well, for me, I think it's really based on the age of the children because I have worked with clients who have had young children, say like 3 or 4.
Mhm.
And of course, they're used to seeing mommy with hair.
Right.
So, you know, the client and I kind of talked through it, and I said, maybe it's something that you don't want to show them your bald head right away.
Mhm.
Maybe you put on a scarf, and then kind of transition into it that way and then form the discussion around that. Mommy's wearing a scarf because, I found out that I'm sick and I have to get some medicine to help me feel better. The medicine makes my hair come out. Sometimes I don't feel the best, and talk to a child at that level, if they're really young. If they're older, say like maybe teenage, they're already experiencing so many things in their own life.
Mhm.
I think with the teenager, just being very open and honest about it um, is the best approach,
Mhm.
giving them an idea of what to possibly expect,
Mhm.
walk them through different changes that are going to happen, and just be honest with them. If your situation is not looking good, and you're thinking that it may turn terminal, prepare them for that. Have those conversations. Because I found that when they're not aware and it just happens like that, it's
It's,
really hard.
yeah, it's
Yeah.
devastating. When I was teaching, I've had some situations like that where the parent didn't tell the child, and I taught middle school, and the parent ends up in the hospital, comatose, or just passes what it seems like suddenly to the child, and
Mhm.
it's absolutely devastating.
Mhm.
So my next question, you kind of segued into it, was terminal patients, because unfortunately, not every cancer patient is a survivor. Um,
Mhm.
a disproportionate amount of cancer patients actually do pass due to the cancer. How do you have that conversation with a cancer patient to kind of prepare them? I mean, even though I don't think anyone can truly be prepared for passing, but to prepare them and their family for that fate, whether it be financial. Do you bring in like an attorney who can help them to get their will and
Mhm.
testaments together? Like, how, do you help them to prepare for the funeral? Because like my grandmother, I know that when she had stomach cancer and she knew she was passing, she lived alone and she wanted to make sure that the process was as seamless as possible. She only had one child, which is my father, and then two grandkids, me and my sister. Um, she paid for all of her funeral arrangements up front. Most people can't do that because they can't even come to terms with the fact that they're going to pass. But she made all the arrangements for her repast, her funeral, everything was paid for. All we had to do was show up.
Mhm.
She told
Mhm.
the funeral home exactly what she wanted in the book. Like everything was like almost done for you. And I'm telling you, that helps so much with the grieving process. You cannot even imagine. I mean,
Mhm.
I'm sure you can, but I'm just saying for the audience, like
Yeah.
it, like just you can just grieve from day one. Just start the grieving process, and
Yeah.
live in the memories, and just it makes life so much better for the people who are living,
Mhm.
you know. But yes, tell me
Mhm.
about
Ye you make a great point, Tracy, because I can speak from my own experience. When my father passed away in 2017, there
that.
was nothing.
Mhm,
Like, I had to pay for the funeral, I had to pick out the suit, like, everything. There was nothing because my father was one of those people that didn't wanna have those kind of conversations. But it just leaves so much stress and pressure on your loved ones, and I in some ways, it's really not fair because as you mentioned, you're already grieving, and then to have the added stress of, "Okay, I have to work this out financially. I
mhm,
have to plan the funeral. I have to plan the repast. I have to do all these things."
mhm,
So, what I, advise my clients to do is to have those conversations
mhm,
no matter how hard they are. Think about your loved ones and how you want them to feel. Do you want them to have all this added stress and pressure? Because they're already going to be grieving over your passing.
mhm,
What I do is I recommend that they do have a healthcare directive, have a will.
mhm,
If you own land or property, make sure that that is all worked out.
mhm.
Have an attorney who can take care of those things.
Right.
Make sure you appoint a couple of people who
Mhm,
will make those decisions for you. If they don't already have attorneys, what I do is I partner with this company called Legal Shield.
mhm,
And then I refer them to Legal Shield so they can start to get those documents in order. There's also an organization here in Minnesota called Cancer Legal Care, and they actually provide free legal support to cancer patients and even survivors. So that's another option for them.
mhm.
But it's tough, but you have to have those conversations because it's hard enough, to number one, watch your loved one go through something like cancer, then be taken from cancer, and then trying to figure out how to lay them to rest the proper way.
Right.
And then, working out all the other details is that comes along with someone passing. So have those conversations, be open and honest. It's not fun, it's very scary. I've had to have those conversations with my family. And
Mhm.
I've made sure that, I had a healthcare directive in place. I have a will in place. They all know how to access it. They know where it is. And just be very, very vocal about it, and God bless, your grandmother for having all those things laid out because it makes a world of difference.
Yeah, it really does. It really does. And my mom, when she passed, it was basically the same. I mean, we had to organize the funeral, but we knew where everything was. We knew what was supposed to be for who. Like all of that was taken care of. And then she had life insurance, so the life insurance paid the funeral home for everything. Um, I'm Caribbean, so everybody chipped in, right, for the repast. Not
Mhm.
that we needed them to, but that's just what people do.
Right.
Everybody's bringing a dish or what do you need? What whatever, and people bring
Mhm.
that. And then once the life insurance paid for the funeral, they cut us our checks, and that was the end of that. The grieving start process. We knew where everything was, and what was going to happen with everything that she left behind. So it wasn't. There was no confusion. There was nothing. It was just a nice smooth transition. And she died on December 20th.
Mm.
Christmas Day is 5 days later. We had already planned something for Christmas, and all the food, I had already bought all the food, and we were like, "What are we gonna do?" And everybody was like, "Let's go ahead and have it." That's what she would want. So we went
Yeah.
ahead, and everybody came over to her house because I didn't have it at my house, and we had the big celebration on Christmas Day. We laughed, we cried, it was just kind of like Christmas, but just that she wasn't there. And then 3 days later, we had her funeral, and we were able to just keep everything kind of moving. I mean, you
Yes.
never truly get over death, but you, if the transition to grieving is smooth, that you remember the person in a positive light versus
Yeah.
remembering all the turmoil that came along with that person passing, if that makes
So
sense.
true.
Yeah.
Absolutely. That sums it up very well. Mhm.
So I am so happy that you joined me here today. Like you answered a lot of
Yeah.
questions. I'm hoping that the audience gets so much from this because I think that what you do is absolutely phenomenal. It takes a special person to help people in the way that you're helping them because my mom had
Mhm.
cancer for 6 years. My grandmother had cancer for 2 years. My cousin had cancer when she was 24, died at 40, and she battled it back. So I've seen what cancer can do to people in everywhere. And I used to be a
Mhm.
nurse too, so I've seen it from every angles, right?
Yeah.
So I
Yeah.
understand the mental, the physical, the emotional turmoil that a person goes through, and not just them, the people who love them go through that with them.
Yeah.
So we had to leave our audience with three thoughts that you want them to keep in mind. What would that be?
For anyone that is wondering how they can support their friend or loved one or family member that has cancer, and they've reached out to that person and they've said, how can I support you? And they say they don't know, that
Mhm,
is okay because they truly don't know. They're trying to
mhm,
figure it out as well. The most important thing you can do is be a strong and consistent presence while they are going through this because that's what they need. They need someone, some form of stability, so to speak, and some form of certainty. And you can serve as that by being there. And if you just come and sit with them, you don't, even if you don't have the right things to say, you don't have to force that. Just sit with them, be available when they do know how you can help and how you can serve them. Just show up. Don't just say, oh, I'm here if you need me. Actually be there. So that's number one. The second thing is for anybody that is interested in becoming a cancer doula, it takes time, to build your clientele. It takes time to get the word out there. There's still a lot of people that don't really understand what a cancer doula is. So it just takes time to educate people.
mhm,
And the other thing is for a lot of people, I want them to be aware that as a cancer doula, I focus on living.
mhm,
So I focus on the present.
mhm.
As we all know, birth doulas focus on the beginning of life, death doulas focus on the end of life. I focus on the here and now. And our goal is to get you to the other side of cancer.
Yeah. hence why her business is called On the Other Side. So if
Yeah.
you want to get in touch with Talaya, you can go to www.ontheotherside.life. Again, that's www.ontheotherside.life. I would suggest that you go sign up for her newsletter if she has one, so that you can stay in contact with her, so that when she puts out the certification course, because I know quite a few of you are interested in it, that you can be first on the list to jump on that offer. So again, if you or someone in your life is suffering from cancer currently and you need a support system, maybe a support system that you're not getting from your family and friends because they just don't understand what you're going through, or you probably are a loner and you don't really have a support system at all from family, or you don't have friends who can help you through the process, please reach out to Talaya at the same email, or you can, sorry, the same website, or you can email her at Talaya at ontheotherside.life. Again, that's Talaya, and that's Talaya at ontheotherside.life. Talaya, thank you so much for being here today. I really appreciate it. It was very enlightening. Now I know exactly what a cancer doula does, and it is such a need. I don't know how come nobody ever thought about this before, but this is awesome.
Thank you, Tracy, for having me. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
And thank you for joining me on the other side.
Yes, you are welcome. And thank you for joining me for morning tea. Until next time, everyone, have a